Hi, I'm Jafar. You can call me Jeff. I'm a user experience designer at Clue by day and an amateur artist by night. I'm here to talk to you about sketching, how it helps me keep my focus, take notes, think through problems and ideas, and communicate them to others. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have convinced you to pick up a pen and start sketching too. Now, before I start, I know that some of you might be thinking, Jeff, I can't draw. Stop being silly. Everyone can draw. How well you draw is another matter. Drawing is a skill like any other. It's trained over time. The more you do it, the better you get. It's not some kind of magical talent that you were born with. Now, luckily, the stuff I'm talking about today doesn't really require that much skill. But do it consistently, and I promise you will get better before you know it. With that said, let's start by asking, what is a sketch? In my opinion, a sketch is something you do quickly. It's freehand, no measurements, tools, and it doesn't really require precision. It should also look a bit rough or unfinished, and we'll revisit this later when we talk about the advantages of these qualities. The first thing sketching is useful for, and what I'm calling focus, can really be used by everyone, regardless of what field you work in. It's also, fortunately, the trickiest to really describe well. How it works for me could be a bit different from how it works for you. I'm talking about sketches or doodles that accompany notes you take to remember things in meetings or presentations. Now, these could be illustrations specific to the topic that's being discussed, or they could just be random doodles in the margins. If you're a sort of restless person like I am, sketching is a great way to stay active in situations where your participation is a bit more passive. Situations like this one, for example, where you're mostly listening. I tend to get sleepy if I'm in these kind of situations for too long, to be honest, or my mind just begins to wander away. Sketching becomes a really good distraction for that side of me, so that the other side can actually focus on what's being said. I usually find it faster to draw than to write long sentences explaining things. I also find that drawing helps me stay focused on what's being said, because if I'm taking notes, I have to think of the words as I'm writing them down, and that makes it a little bit difficult to keep up with what's being said. These drawings also make it much faster to read notes than just plain text. Okay, now let's talk about design. What is design? Well, it's not about making things pretty. It's actually about solving problems. Creating or doing things a certain way for a reason. For example, a light switch is designed for switching lights on and off fairly quickly, while the dial on a dimmable light is designed for more control over the amount of light. Simply put, designing means putting thought into the decisions that you make, and sketching can help you think better. Most of the time, we think by having an inner monologue. Drawing allows you to turn that monologue into a conversation with yourself. Drawing takes an idea out of your head and into the physical world. Once there, it can give you a fresh perspective on it, and it can reveal angles that might have been hidden when it was just in your head. Looking at drawings presents your own ideas as new input, allowing you, in a sense, to have that conversation with yourself, to refine your ideas and to develop them further. Beyond that, what makes sketching so great for design? Let's go back to what a sketch is. It's fast and cheap, which makes it flexible, because you can make small adjustments or big changes. The amount of changes you can usually make becomes narrower as you move from sketches and prototypes towards finished products. A sketch is also clearly a work in progress, and that makes people more comfortable pointing out issues and making suggestions. There's also a lot less perceived effort going into a sketch than a polished product. So they're less likely to think that they're hurting your feelings and more likely to be honest, especially if they're nice people. What's important then is that you use those strengths. Keep iterating on your designs, find them more, polish them. The idea is that is not just the sketches. Now, let's talk about how you actually get feedback on your ideas. How many times have you heard, "I have a great idea for an app," or even said it yourself? From my experience, there's two common problems that follow that statement. First is that when communicated verbally, ideas can often be misinterpreted. We all have different frames of reference. So if I were to say sports car, what are the odds that we're all thinking of the same car? Pretty slim, I'd say. That leaves room for misunderstandings. Ideas are also a dime a dozen. They're not really worth much. And that makes us a little bit dismissive towards them. Unless you turn your ideas into something more. Concepts. Concepts, in my interpretation, are ideas that have taken a few laps and been developed a little bit. They're more focused and can be easily explained to others. Being able to visually illustrate your concept not only eliminates confusion that can come from verbal communication, it also shows others that some effort has been put into them, and that should get them taken more seriously. So, what are good qualities in a sketch for communication? Well, clarity, because we need to know what we're looking at. What is your idea? Simplicity, allowing us to focus on important things and not unnecessary details. And finally, sketchiness. That is when something looks unfinished, easy to critique, easy to change, work in progress, like we said. That leaves room for others to jump in and collaborate. And that's where the magic really happens. Now, I could go on and on about this and dive into things like how sketching can be used to give clear feedback and bounce ideas back and forth in a team. How to go from an idea to a concept that you can seriously pitch. I could have gone deeper into interaction design and user experience design, or even just start teaching you some basic drawings. But I'll leave these topics for another time. My goal with this video was just to get you interested in sketching, visual communication, and maybe some design thinking. If any of these things interest you, feel free to reach out. You can find me on Instagram or on the Q Group Slack. Maybe we can have a workshop or something. Thank you for watching. Designing means putting things into the that was great.